Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Hector. We're continuing through these research barrow ships, re-reviewing, seeing what they're like in 2025, and if they're worth grinding for. Research points take quite a long time to get, and for that hard-earned time, are you going to get a good ship at the end if you pick up the Hector? Well, on paper, not really, and yet I had a really good time playing Hector. It's a very weird one. This video here, I'm quite conflicted in that I had some pretty good games, and overall, Hector played quite well as a light cruiser with smoke, even getting a Superheal, helping you to survive. But it's just outclassed by tech tree ships. This has been a bit of a common theme running through these research barrow ships videos, comparing them in 2025, and in this case it just comes down to other light cruisers at this tier just have better DPM and also have smokes, also have really good torpedoes, sometimes better torps, also have pretty solid survivability. It's just outclassed is the problem with the Hector, and a real big issue is your DPM. Just your outright DPM here is quite a lot worse than Sejong. It may not look quite as bad on paper to start with. Sejong here having 288,000 HE DPM versus Hector's 238,000, so missing a little bit there. But what it really comes down to is our firing angles. Notice we're actually not firing all of our turrets right now. You have a very, very limited firing arc to actually shoot all of your guns. It's a little bit like the Katsonis at tier 9 there. That's that pan-European destroyer line. From 40 to 60 degrees forward, that's it. That's all you get for firing angles of all your guns. Otherwise, it's going to be 86%, which puts you down closer to 200,000 HE DPM. Suddenly, you're quite far back from Sejong, which is a tech tree tier 9. You can get that one entirely for free. And yet, I said I had a good time with this ship. Well, that comes down to the crawling smoke, these single launch conga line beads, as well as having a hydro. It's really convenient to have this personal hydro. The crawling smokes allow you to not always sit in one spot with your smoke screen. I reversed there a little too quick, I didn't realize, but actually in full reverse, you're outpacing your crawling smoke, so something to be aware of there. But being able to move around in your smoke is a really big benefit. If you've ever played Perth, and those of you that enjoy Perth are probably going to enjoy Hector at this tier, it's a very unique experience having this crawling smoke. There's a massive downside, of course, and that is once it's up, you have such a long downtime between smokes. We've got to wait 130 seconds now when our smoke puff dissipates and then until our next one comes through. That is a big downside. And yet having these crawling smokes is very, very fun. These torpedoes here are excellent for your tier. They're very comparable actually to Sejong torpedoes. They don't have the deep water characteristics, so they're able to hit destroyers. They go 12 kilometers, 16,700 alpha damage, and you have a 96-second reload on them. Being able to single launch them too is really, really good. The torps certainly are a key element of Hector, and you really do need to maximize these torpedoes, get in positions to use them, single launch like this on island cover that are common areas for people to push, or just zone off areas. People just don't expect these 12-kilometer torps, and we land a ton of just random torpedoes. Yes, the Iowa H3 there, bow on, and that is a convenient element of being able to single launch torpedoes. But just throwing them out into common choke points, you're going to get a lot of torpedo hits because people just aren't going to be expecting it. Sejong, though, also has 12-kilometer torps, a little bit higher alpha damage, and of course, the Pan-Asian light cruisers get that torpedo reload booster. Deep waters mean you can't hit destroyers, but they're even harder to detect, so you're more likely to land them on target. It's much harder to dodge them. Already we're seeing that Sejong really is just a better version of Hector in many ways. There's very little that Hector actually does better. A big issue with Hector too can be the shell velocity on these main guns. You're going to notice that it feels pretty floaty. They're quite similar actually to Sejong shells, so not a real big difference there. But it's not a benefit that Hector has. It's not like a Smolensk or even a Dalian, which is a tier 9 with Russian destroyer guns, I believe, and that gets better shell velocity. It's a bit of a downside here. This one doesn't also have very good fire chance. 8% is fine, but Sejong has 9%, as well as more salvos, more shells per minute, leading to many more fires per minute. Hector is good. Good enough to have great games like this one, finding itself in between islands, constantly trying to get into situations where you can farm around islands, as well as use your torpedoes to zone people out. It can do really, really well. And like I said, I had a great time playing this ship. It's just as soon as I started to look at the paper stats, I suddenly realized how much better Sejong is, and you just don't have to spend all that time grinding research points to get the Sejong. Perhaps, though, this isn't the most fair comparison, since Sejong is quite an outlier when it comes to DPM, especially at tier 9. Things like Seattle, Dalian, right in that 240,000 HE DPM. Hector slots in as the 4th best as far as HE DPM goes on tier 9 cruisers. It's still very powerful in that regard. You can farm a ton of damage out of this ship. And I think that's why I had a good time still, even though I looked at the stats and suddenly saw how good Sejong is. It's still very powerful, the Hector. You can still have excellent games in it. In fact, you can have more fun games thanks to this smoke. I think it's a more fun smoke, even if I personally would prefer, if I'm tryharding for damage, I much prefer the Pan-Asian smokes. They are coming back a lot quicker. They're a lot more consistent to get out of your ship. There's less downtime in between smokes. They're very good for setting up and farming damage, moving on. It's a bit of a middle ground between more long duration smokes like we see on American destroyers in particular, and the short bursty smokes we see on the British destroyers as an example. Comparing this ship to other light cruisers at your tier, something like the Kuhorn, which is the new Dutch light cruiser at tier 9, that ship has 164,000 HE DPM. Yes, it has airstrikes, okay, but that is way less than the Hector. This ship still has very good DPM. Encounter is another tier 9, this time heavy cruiser. And sure, the guns do have a lot more pen, but 162,000 HE DPM on that one. We have much worse pen, of course, much worse shell velocity, but the DPM here is still quite good. You're seeing how powerful this AP can be. I was shocked by this, by the way. A few games, this one in particular, I did not expect to be citadeling a Cleveland at those ranges. These guns are just 133mm guns, so they're on the large side for destroyer-style guns. They're still light cruiser, very light cruiser guns, and yet the AP shells have quite solid pen. At 10 kilometers, you have 109mm of pen on this AP, where Sejong only has 62. It's really solid stuff. This game here getting us an E, so not the most damage required to actually get an E in this ship. Maybe that tells you something about this ship as well. Moving on, though, we've got ourselves a Zhao, and I greedily open up before I'm concealed in my smoke. Not a good idea. This ship is large, okay? That is another downside to this ship. You have 40,000 HP at most. This is taking Survivability Expert and the flag. And yeah, that was a quarter of our HP. There was nearly 10k salvo from HE on that Zhao. And that's like a quarter of our HP pool from Zhao HE, one salvo. Brutal stuff. That's where this Superheal comes in. Again, launching those torpedoes out into typical choke points and hoping for some hits. Really, really valuable, really useful to have a smoke like this one where we're able to set up close to our DDs. That's how we impact those engagements. That's how we have a lot of battle impact in light cruisers. Ones without radar, well, you got to get in there and help on that destroyer engagement. It's risky though to take a lot of damage early on, but with these smokes we can set up and then move afterwards and still make use of our smoke later. Even when the torpedoes come, Hydro helping us spot those. Like, it's a good kit. Like the consumable layout here is quite solid. The DPM even quite decent. Fortunately get that torpedo in on that Bazan, and he floods out for us. So a really nice way to start off this game. Hector does not have that radar utility, and yet this smoke allows us to get in and relatively safely impact that early destroyer engagement and give us a really nice setup into this match. Really good to take out destroyers early. The fire chance is not amazing for tier 9 light cruisers. I mean, It's fine. 10 fires per minute is quite good, but Sejong has 14.4. I know, Sejong is just that good, but it's a fair comparison, especially with how much easier it is to get than Hector is. And yet, we're getting a ton of fires here on this Valparaiso. A third one, even. If he doesn't have his F key, man, this is going to be some very, very good damage. Those awkward firing angles again when you're in a kited position like this, not able to use all of our guns here. Alpha damage is, you know, decent into his superstructure, but really getting those fires is what has burned this guy down so effectively. And he's out early. We're very lucky that he didn't get enough secondary hits to actually activate his F key. Onwards to our next game, and we're going to get into quite an uncomfortable position here. This is a full up tier into those super ships. I have to mention that, as always, with tier 9. Those super ship up tiers are brutal. Here we're also seeing another downside of Hector and its gun layout. The turrets are quite separate from one another, from the bow to the stern. So we're actually missing a lot of our DPM here, not just because of our poor angles, but because some of those turrets were stuck firing into the island. So we're actually going to let this Shima get away. We weren't quite able to out DPM him and take him out of this battle, even though we caught him off guard. I really did find that lack of reload to be a little disappointing at times, and that was one of those situations. Just having a 6.7 base reload here, 6.7 second base reload on Hector, that's pretty long for what are essentially destroyer guns. Yes, you get quite a few of them, but these angles are very difficult to use. Fortunately, though, you do have this excellent smoke allowing you to over peak around islands and still be okay. And again, it's really convenient having this smoke, not only for open water situations to set up and farm, but even around islands like this. There would be times where I'm playing a Colbert or something like that and trying to farm around these islands, then you just get spotted because you're trying to use all your DPM around it, and well, it's a good way to get dev strike rather quickly. Notice the lack of fires on this Wisconsin, by the way. Sometimes you get lucky, like on the Valparaiso. Sometimes you don't. Fires, as always, are a bit of RNG. But having this, right, the Hanover, we would easily be spotted, and yet we're not. And as we're getting into a situation where maybe this Edgar is pushing and possibly getting a Hydro on us, fortunately not, we can start reversing. Moving this smoke around is so convenient, and having a smoke is much nicer than not. Colbert is a ship that I have not compared this to yet, because there's really no contest when it comes to the gun output. The DPM on Colbert is simply ridiculous. It's a hard ship to play, though, because it doesn't have a smoke. I think Hector is also hard to play because its smoke isn't as convenient to use as some of these other light cruisers. You know, the Pan-Asian light cruisers come to mind. Excuse this terrible display, by the way. I think I dodge it, and for some reason I just keep holding my rudder. So now we're going to eat this torpedo. Awful gameplay for me. And yet, we're going to actually live through this one. Trying to use our single launch torpedoes on this Edgar, and then the island eats them. Oh no, what a disaster. Fortunately, yes, that AP pen. I've actually got a mod there that tells me it's 220 mil pen at these ranges. That's really close range, but even heavy cruisers we would be getting through and definitely annihilate that Edgar, and we do manage to just barely stay alive. And the Superheal will help us have a decent output into the late game here, although it is just destroyers, and we really didn't get much else afterwards. But this is a problem. Comparing it to Colbert, there's a bit of a problem. I will always want to get Colbert over Hector, personally. It's harder to play, but it's the same resource. If you're looking for a light cruiser and you want that insane light cruiser DPM risk-reward playstyle, Colbert is just the one to get, personally, if you're willing to grind through this research bureau. 46,000 research points for Hector is quite a lot, and it's a decent discount over that Colbert. 57,000. It's like one more reset that you don't have to do. But I would do it, personally. You can also use this smoke as a nice way to go cap things. You're going to find a lot of games like this one as well. It's not just Hector that struggles with this. I think all light cruisers, all cruisers probably, shouldn't just limit it to light cruisers, but all cruisers do struggle today in World of Warships, where everybody just kites away, man. they all just stay at the back of the map, spamming their overmatching AP, HE spam even from some of the battleships at times. It's tough, man. We're like 12 minutes into this match. I have 23,000 damage, but I have 2 solo caps. There are other things you can do as a light cruiser, especially one with a smokescreen. And we got ourselves A and B on our way over to the D cap here. Sorry, C cap. Wrong layout. And we don't have a smoke available, but we could still farm over an island. I think that's a key point to make here, is that you're going to spend a lot of time playing Hector. These ships with these crawling smokes are quite fun, but you're going to spend a lot of time without that smoke, just because it goes on full cooldown at the end. That's such a benefit of these stationary smokes. The smoke screen is set up, and then it instantly goes on reload, and you still have plenty of time left in your smoke to sit there and farm. Not so with these crawling smokes. It's a big downside. So you really do need to play it almost like you're playing a cool barrel out of the time, to be honest, where you're making use of island cover and you're not taking too many risks. You're finding positions where you can farm relatively safely, isolating fights. It's a similar feeling when you don't have that smoke. Fortunately, you do have this smoke as a bit of a get out of jail free card, or you get into trouble, you still have this smoke screen. It does take a while to puff up around you, as we saw against that Zhao earlier in that earlier clip. Give it some time and make sure you're fully slowed down. Hector, being a British cruiser, has that built-in acceleration, just like Minotaur line, but it also means it doesn't stop particularly quickly in this smoke. As you can see, it also continues to puff around you when you're just traversing the map, so it can give you away. There are certainly downsides to this smoke. I had a good time playing Hector. That was a first class, that not quite an E, but such low damage and yet top score somehow. And I think that's down to the caps. So the Hector really is just such a weird, interesting ship. And again, going over the footage and after recording all of that post commentary, I'm realizing I really only had the one decent game in it, at least to show you guys here today, and yet I had a pretty good time with it. Not actual damage, but it was generally a pretty fun ship to play, I guess, even if the end score number didn't always show it. I think what it comes down to is it's such a weird turret layout to use. It's hard to use, but kind of enjoyable. And especially these torpedoes. Single launch torps that come back relatively quickly. It's quite fun. The crawling smoke is also a fun smoke to use. Those of you that have played Perth probably already know that. It's a very different experience. This ship does have a very large, easy to hit citadel. It's not very well armored at all. It's going to get overmatched a lot. 27 mil deck armor is fine, but at this tier, that's not really that impressive. This is a large citadel, by the way. Fortunately, this little cap here doesn't give you citadel pens, so that's nice, but it's a very easy target to hit as far as citadels go, and not a lot of HP. Fortunately, your detection is quite good. Your speed is all right, but typically you're setting up on a flank, spinning around with these torpedoes, getting your smokes, farming damage, and it can do a decent job, but I mean, it's so much grinding to get this when the tech tree offers you something that's even better at this smoke farming role. But it doesn't have this smoke, and I guess that's the reason to get this thing, is getting that crawling smoke at a higher tier. So if you really like Perth, I suppose at that point then you could also play the tech tree ships, the heavy cruisers that have that crawling smoke just with heavier guns. Like I said, though, their DPM is quite a bit lower, at tier 9 especially. Although you do get quite a few more full pens with those 203s. As for the build, I was going with something like this. I did not actually find Superintendent that useful, which is so weird. As soon as you have a heal, especially a super heal and smokes that you're relying on, Superintendent seems like a no-brainer. But getting to that 4th smoke, you got to spend a lot of time in battle. As well as super heals. This many super heals on a ship with this little HP, you're probably dead if you're needing to use that many super heals. I think 3 was enough, at least for the games that I was playing. Maybe that speaks to I was not taking enough risk with this ship into those longer games if I wasn't using those heals, perhaps. Fortunately, though, the guns are a small enough caliber. We can use heavy HE and get away with it without the concealment penalty. So 9.4 detect is really nice. Decent difference between our torpedo range and our concealment range, allowing us to stealth torp, spin to win in that regard. It's decent. I can't say it's good. And considering the stats and how I really didn't have that many impressive damage games out of it, I can't say it's good. I cannot say it's worth getting. Just get the tech tree ships or just go for the Colbert if you are willing to grind out research points. So that is a much, much better ship. And yet I have a general feeling that I had fun playing it. Isn't that weird? I don't know. Maybe you can let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you've got this ship, let us know what you think. And if you're interested, definitely check out some of those comments. As always, you should be getting other perspectives, and hopefully you can find that in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.